Hello, Emily here, and I've just finished reading Marilla of Green Gables. I'm a huge fan of the Anne of Green Gables series, so I was really excited when this book was released back in 2018. Just a note before we get started, while the original Anne series is meant for about ages 8 to 12 or grades 4 to 7, this book is aimed at adult readers. There's not any sort of explicit adult content, it's just written on a higher reading level than the original books. So, at age 13, Marilla's mother, Clara, is pregnant and is not doing well. Her mother's twin sister, Izzy, had come to help the family while Clara was in the last stages of her difficult pregnancy and to help Clara through the birth. Up until this point, Izzy was a mystery to Marilla, someone she had only heard stories about. Izzy's life was very different from what Marilla knew. She had chosen to never marry and had moved to the nearby city of St. Catharines to start her own business. Marilla admires Izzy's strong personality, but at the same time can't quite make sense of it. "We only have one life to live, Marilla." Her eyes grazed the length of the town. Still, she kept Jericho at a halt. It's selfish of a person to take what's given without knowing if it's even what they want. For as long as I can remember, I had an urge for more. Some called that selfishness, but I thought it only fair if I tried to fill that moreness myself rather than expect someone else to fill it for me. Do you know what I mean? Marilla did, but she couldn't imagine anybody leaving the island forever. It was just about the most perfect place on earth. What more could a person want? True, she'd never been off it, but from all she read in the newspapers, the rest of the world was riddled with strife. War and death from Texas down to Brazil in the south. Crops dying and farmers' families starving in Canada from east to west. Marilla's whole world is Green Gables. She does have some friends, her neighbor Rachel White, and her brother's friend John Blythe. John recognizes that though she cannot return to school, Marilla is smart. He helps her to study at home to pass her school exit exams early, which she passes at nearly the top of her class. As she grows older, Marilla's world slowly grows as well. After joining the local Ladies' Aid Society to make shawls for orphans with her friend Rachel, Marilla has the opportunity to go to Nova Scotia to personally deliver the shawls. There, not only is she confronted with what it's like to be an orphan, but she also discovers that the orphanage is also helping to rescue runaway slaves from America. While Marilla knows that slavery still exists in America, this is the first time she's ever really been confronted with it. As her and John's friendship progress, John brings newspapers from Matthew and Marilla to read. The papers are filled with reports of political unrest happening in her own Canada. Though the Cuthbert family is known for keeping quiet and keeping their opinions to themselves, Marilla soon finds that she does have something to say about the current state of affairs. Her relationship with John has become more serious, but despite the strong feeling she has for him, she cannot imagine trading one farm life for another, or even if she wants to be married at all. Rachel patted Marilla's hand. "Don't worry about me. I'll find my husband soon enough." Husband. The word choked Marilla. Who said anything about husbands? Suddenly, she felt 10 times her age, heavy with the burden of what was to come and wishing they could turn back the clock to a year ago, when they were girls sewing pretty sleeves and planning May picnic costumes, when her mother was full of new life and Green Gables was their promised land. It had all turned out so differently than expected. Marilla often battles with herself between giving herself permission to do what she wants and to be the person she wants to be and the person that she feels she should be. "Maybe one day you'll go to Rupert's Land and see it for yourself." She laughed. Fancy that. A woman traveling by herself like a buccaneer. But even as she said it, she thought of Izzy and wondered, perhaps so, and why not? This often leads to tension with her relationship with John. She loves him, but also wants to be treated a certain way. She ends up conflicted within herself, which leads to conflict in their relationship. Everything comes to a head when Izzy returns for a visit, bringing some very special people with her. Marilla is forced to make a decision about who she is and what she thinks is the right thing to do. I did enjoy this book as an adult trip back to the world of Avonlea and Green Gables. It's interesting to read a book where you already know what comes after and consider who Marilla may have been before Anne Shirley arrived in the wagon with Matthew, and what choices she made to become who we know her as. Though the book is a good story, it still didn't have quite the same voice as the original stories. Of course, Lucy Maud Montgomery originally published Anne in 1908, and this book was published 110 years later. And I applaud author Sarah McCoy's efforts spent trying to recapture the spirit of Avonlea and all of its famous inhabitants. McCoy spent lots of time at the Green Gables Heritage Place, the actual house that inspired Montgomery and has become a museum to all things Anne, and also spoke extensively with members of the Montgomery estate. So while I think this was an enjoyable, good faith effort to revisit and continue the story of Avonlea, for me, it still felt a little flat. If you're interested, though, I hope you will check out Marilla of Green Gables. You can find it in our fiction section. Thanks.